So there was thanks for waiting. For next half an hour, 45 minutes, I will be trying to give you a quick insight into what has been cooking with Microsoft .co, ASP.NET Core. So when we talk about .NET Core, what exactly it is? If I was to simply define it, yes. So primarily, if I was to say what is .NET Core, I would simply define it as the cross-platform implementation of .NET. But that is too simple a definition. A lot of questions come to your mind. First of all, why would you need a .NET Core? Okay, so this is something that I have been longing for a long time, and a lot of you also. One of the topmost reason is that you would not like to restrict your application domain to be just Windows. We all know, given the total number of count of devices worldwide, you have Windows, you have OS X, you have Linux, Unix, and not to mention the boom of the mobile devices running, Android and other platforms. The question becomes, should we continue to suffer in the pain of having a separate project for each one of these platforms, continue to maintain them, and then try and troubleshoot each one of them separately? Honestly speaking, I would not like to do that. So what is the solution? So let's quickly talk about that. Since .NET Core is the solution that we say would let our .NET applications, .NET framework-based applications to run across frameworks like Mac, Windows, Unix, Linux. How exactly did it came into picture? What was our favorite Microsoft had been doing for so long, for so many years? What were the different approaches and how it did not work? So I'll talk a bit about different vertical platforms, like by vertical platforms I mean your Windows Phone or a Windows machine or any other platform where you would like to host your application and you would end up doing a separate code base for it. Okay. So the problem that had been throughout was that for .NET, the MSCORLIB was the core assembly for which everything was being picked out. So everything that you were coding in .NET always depended upon this specific library. This specific library was not factored for the code. By factoring, I mean that we always thought as .NET guys that this would only be working on Windows. This would not be targeting a Linux or a Unix or a Mac machine. So you would not really think about distributing the code across components. So the code factoring was not there. Everything went into this, and if a lot of this code was not capable of being hosted or being workable on other platforms, we did not really care, like remoting or app domains. So a lot of this stuff, we may not be able to support on Unix or a Android device or Mac. So technology stack would be slightly different there. So you were not able to pick and choose. So even if you wanted to take your code to a different platform, the only limited choice was that you would have to implement everything that was there within MSCORLIB for that platform and get it done. That was the only way for your .NET application to be there. Now, one of the very good example is that if you wanted to have native .NET use be hosted, then what would you do? When .NET Native was developed, it was very clear that it cannot use Microsoft .NET framework, core framework as its base, because what happens is that during the build it weeds out the code which is not required, only uses what is required. With MSCORLIB that was not possible. Now what did that lead to? When the team at Microsoft, the good guys, were trying to work out a possible solution, they came out with the concept of the contract assembly. So probably a lot of you are already aware of it. We'll just quickly walk through. Contract assemblies, in short, was the first step towards the code refactoring of larger set of code into smaller pieces. So you would have smaller pieces which could be picked based upon your choice and your target platform. So the idea is that you do not want to pick out a big namespace and have a lot of code in there which you would not be using. So team at Microsoft worked very carefully to trim it down to single task responsibilities, at the same time taking care that each of the contract assemblies were very well defined in terms of the dependencies. So it should not be the case that although you are trying to pick up a small piece of code, but it depends on too many other contract assemblies and you end up with the same situation again. So it's very nicely done. What was the next step? What it led to was the contract assemblies. They enabled the concept of portable class libraries, which basically allowed you to run your applications across different verticals, but it still left out few difficult points, like there were too many versions of forks of .NET floating around, and it will be too expensive to make sure that all of those at the same time are actually ported so that your platform independence is supported. This is the one reason if you have a .NET version being released, it takes a lot of time. You spend a lot of time in testing each one of the small changes, but things can always still break. So where was all this leading to? The concept was that if you are upgrading all this and you had an application in production, sometimes you would not have say on what was to be upgraded or what was not to be upgraded. This would affect all the .NET applications system wide. So from few years back, as we are all probably aware, that we have started the concept of application local framework. So we are not releasing new libraries as a part of the .NET framework. We are getting them from NUGET. So the only time they would exist on the system is if an application is using it. If your application is using it, you would have a copy of it, which will be application local framework. So it do not affect the other assemblies. But this does not solve the complete problem. I'm still not able to reach out to other platforms, and I'm still not able to harness a very big market which is Android and Unix and Linux. So we needed something which would solve this. So this is where .NET Core was formed. So primarily for .NET Core, Microsoft team has worked hard to port it to all the respective versions of Linux, Unix that were out there, which were in wide usage, along with the Mac machines. So they divided the whole the core part of the .NET into two parts. One which is the CLR, so everything like your the base class, the base class library, the MSCORLIB which I was just talking about, it got segregated into a lot of different parts. Then we have the GC, JIT, all the base types. They came into the core CLR, and into the core FX went everything else, which was classes for collections, your file systems and your XML. So in this way, if they have segregated the like for example the file system handling, so if you were to take this .NET Core for a new platform, you would not be making changes to the core CLR but only to the file system part of the core FX. What would you need to get your development going using .NET Core? So Microsoft gave you the DNVM. So it gave us all the core libraries to get the code executed on the different platforms, but at the same time we needed the tools also to develop on these different platforms. We needed something which would help us to manage, what frameworks were installed on my machine, how to install them if it was not there. If I wanted a RC version or unstable version, something which would tell me what version is installed. So DNVM is .NET version manager. So you would need PowerShell to run your DNVM. We'll see it shortly, how to run the DNVM, how to check it out. Just two quick important points. When we were trying to get this going, we faced problems. First was, if your PowerShell is not greater than or equal to 4.0, you would have a problem. You would not be able to run DNVM. So please make sure that your PowerShells are upgraded to the latest version. It'll weed out a lot of problems that you might face otherwise. Second problem is, on a lot of development machines, we saw the problem that there were not enough writes. So there's something related to the execution policy that we have to be careful with. So let me quickly switch to the PowerShell here. Primarily, this is my PowerShell, and once it has started, it is all set. And my DNVM, if you are using Microsoft Visual Studio, the latest version, you would not have problems running DNVM. With RC2 update, this would already be there. So what does DNVM do? So DNVM basically has a lot of command options. I'll not go in detail here. It helps you install different frameworks that you have. It lets you upgrade itself. It lets you list what are the available runtimes. Let's quickly go ahead and let's say DNVM list. So right now I have update RC1, update 2 on my machine installed. So depending upon what versions you have installed on your machine, your output could be different. If I just quickly wanted to install a version of the runtime I knew, I could just simply run it with the install command. Now once you are sure that your DNVM is in place, why not let's quickly go out and try and build a small application. So the command here, the first one, takes care of your execution policy also. What basically it is saying is that for all your profiles on this machines for PowerShell, it is setting the execution policy as unrestricted. So we would not have problems in getting this installed. Now if you are sure that you don't want to do that and you understood the execution policies in PowerShell, and the second command would be the one for you, which would install on your machine the DNVM. Let me switch quickly. There's not a Visual Studio requirement for this specific demo. I have created a small Hello World program for you, so I'll just quickly copy paste it for you. Let me see. So to many of you this would seem very familiar. We are just having a using clause here. We just have a standard namespace declaration. We have a class and we have a entry point function, and it is just trying to write to the console my first .NET Core demo. Awesome. Let me save it out, and I'll say
perfectly.
Right. So let me go. Yes, let me go back few steps. So here is a small sample program that we are going to compile with the help of DNVM, execute it, and we'll all do I'm using Notepad++. You could very easily do it with Notepad. So this is a very simple program. It just has a small statement. It is trying to print on the console here. So let me go ahead and save this. I'll save it to core demo. I'll save it as program.cs. About that. So my program is saved now, and what happens is in your earlier versions, if you are having the using statements, you somewhere needed to define from where you would be referencing those DLLs, those namespaces. So we had complex project files. I'm pretty sure many of you must have faced the problem of project files not getting checked out, or getting overwritten, or not getting updated despite you being trying to frantically see why the references are not getting fixed. So one of the problem would be that it was too complex, it was very specific to Windows file system. So Microsoft team has done away with that structure, the standard project file that was having references to all the libraries. Instead, what they've done is that they have come up with a simple file called project.json. So what it does primarily is that it would I'll take a very simple version of it. It basically lets you know what frameworks you want to use. So all the dependencies that you earlier used to define in your project file are now within this single file, which is saved as project.json. Just make sure that you have this. I'll just save this as project.json. Now what do we do next? What is the next step? Next step is that I'll go to my PowerShell back. I'll switch to the library, and let me see. So these are the two files that we just created, and let me actually. So what is happening here right now, that okay, so it gave me an issue. So okay, this is very important here. It requires a log file. It's more closer to your Unix environment where a log file is required. Let me quickly do a dnu. Okay, let me run the command again. Build command to now. Okay, so it successfully built it. And if I go to the library, if I'll go to this directory, it should have created a new directory by the name of bin. If I go to bin and cd debug, so my application is there now. So once your application is built, the command to execute would be dnx run. So what basically it is doing is it is picking up the code which you just created in your process of writing the program, compiling it, and it's just throwing the output. So because we only had my first .NET Core demo, awesome. So primarily, along with the concept of being platform independent, what has happened in the process is that a lot of simplification has happened. A lot of the part which we earlier used to dread or have trouble with is actually done away with, and this is a very welcome change. So you would not have you would not have problems related to your project files going corrupt and stuff. Okay, so this was a basic small introduction to what core is, what it can accomplish, and how we are able to write without using Visual Studio. Now coming back to the concept of let me see if we have any questions here. Okay, so we have few questions here. I think I'll take some of these questions right away. So one of the questions from Joseph is that he's very happy with .NET framework. So why should he be going with .NET Core? So I'm not sure if I've answered that fully, but probably I've answered this partly. So one of the doubt that comes out of this question is that yes, that I'm very happy this is battle tested .NET framework that you have right now. So when I say battle tested, I mean battle tested, because we have seen a lot of enterprise application frameworks being based upon .NET framework in production for years now. It has had a time of 15 years to mature. So yes, it is battle tested, it is battle ready, it is very stable. However, we should not we cannot ignore the fact that there is a big market. If I was to talk from the perspective of sales, that we need to tap. So I would be very happy if as a company CEO, CTO, I'm able to cover the market of Unix or Mac without having to write new code using my existing code. So that increases the prospect of sales for me, and it's not just that, it makes my life easier, because we all know how we have been creating different project types. So Joseph, does that answer your question a little bit? Joseph is probably not able to hear us. Okay, so I have another question from Shubhi. So primarily the question is, how can I create a web project? So will it work on all Unix flavors? So the answer is, for the first part, yes, we are coming to it. I'll show it to you, and yes, it'll work on Unix flavors. So we'll also talk about why it'll work on all Unix flavors and how can you create it, but for the purpose of today's scope, we'll just try to create something which is within the Visual Studio, and I'll try to walk you through what is the entry point for .NET Core, how it is a little bit different, and how it is same. So that takes care of a few questions here. So coming back to the point, what it does is, let me scroll up a bit. I think I missed out a few points. So when you do a build here in .NET Core, what is happening primarily is, if you see that
in the question and answer window, can you mark all question and answer?
Okay, sure. So primarily what happens is that with the advent of this project.json file, primarily I think I'm getting a lot of queries which are related to whether it will work on different flavors of Unix or not, or why we should go for it. In short, let's compare it with Java. So you write your code, a single code base, and you compile it, and you target different frameworks, different kinds of frameworks or operating systems. So which makes it easier. It reduces the cost for me. We all know, how much struggle at times we do with the pre-compiler directives and trying to figure out why something is not running on one OS and running on other. So just imagine if let's say even if we take a 50-50 ratio and you had only your product being targeted for Windows platform, you now have a chance where you can actually market your product for the remaining 50% of the market. So which will be great from a CTO's perspective actually. So let's move ahead now. We'll now try to build a small ASP.NET core application, and we'll see what the difference is, what are the different parts of it. I'll try to create a new project here. I'll choose the template ASP.NET Core Web Application. We'll try to say Core App. I just select the web application here. So right now we are using Visual Studio to create the first ASP.NET application, but in the next follow-ons we'll try to use simply text editor so everybody can actually follow it. So what you want to do first when you are creating ASP.NET Core web application is you want to see what your entry point is, how your .NET ASP.NET Core application would be serving pages content to the user. So it is something very similar to your MVC application. So your configure is the method which in a way serves all the content to your user. So in short, this is your way to build up a pipeline for handling your HTTP traffic. So if somebody is asking for a page, this is the place where you would know how to serve it. There are different middlewares involved here. There are different MVC routes that you use. So one of the middleware here is app.use static files. So what it does is when it is coming through here in case of a request, it sees if you are asking for a static file, which could be simply a HTML page or some image. It would simply return from this point, would not go through the rest of the code execution path and return here. Now what happens if you are asking for a page which you intended to serve through your controllers in a very similar fashion to a regular MVC application. It knows from where to pick up your controllers and how to match your views. So if let's go ahead and create a new controller and a view here. Core controller. It will not do anything yet since we don't have a view here right now. And let's go ahead and create a view for it. Let me add a folder. I'll just remove everything and I'll say Spain serve with ASP.NET Core. Right. Let's try to run this application. This is the default page that comes up. We created a controller by the name of Core. Let's try and see if it's being served. Okay, so I had a bad connection here. So okay, that's fine. There seems to be some problem with that specific project. So let me try and run on the project that I had created as part of this demo only. So in the similar fashion, in another application, we have a controller here by the name of Awesome First. Awesome First is the controller. You have similarly a view inside it and index.cshtml defined here. Let me try and run this. So what this does is, so it serves you a page, something very similar to in any MVC application. So the concept of your controllers and view is pretty much the same. It is primarily a lot of work which has been done at the .NET Core level, your assembly, your division of different components, and they have been made available to you for various platforms. Okay, so we have one more question which is related to if you do not have if you're using Red Hat. So yes, you can go ahead, very well write an application, a full-blown application. It is just that I am more used to being a Microsoft .NET guys for last 15 years, that it is more comfortable to use the autocomplete and everything, but it is not stopping you anymore, because as I shared that you can very well create application in Notepad. So I think that is all for today's session. It was a very basic introductory session about how .NET Core is now available for various operating systems, and you can very well now target with your MVC applications different platforms available to you, so that power is available with you. And there will be few hiccups on the way, because this is still an RC being released. So you'll have to see how as we move along, how the problems are being handled. But as far as I'm aware, a lot of hard work is being done by Microsoft team here. That's all for today.